Hello. In this video, we're going to be looking at solving literal equations. When we say literal equations, what we're really talking about is just an equation, like what we see here, d equals m divided by v. It has multiple variables, and it's going to tell us which variable we're going to solve for. So we're going to use a lot of the same ideas that we know from solving regular equations, and we're just going to be using multiple variables here. So the first thing I would do is I would identify where the desired variable is. Right, so we're solving for m. M is right here, it's being divided by v. So if I multiply both sides by v, and if this side's a fraction, I'm gonna write it as a fraction too, v over 1, that's the same as v. And I'm just gonna multiply the left side by v as well. So we have v times d is equal to m. So we solved it for m, and that's just rearranging the variables, but they still maintain the same relationship between the variables. And so we could reverse these, d and v. It could be d times v is equal to m, just like 3 times 2, 2 times 3, we're still getting the same thing. So we can reverse the order of those. And so that's how we would solve this really basic one. We just do our operations just the same way we would do a regular equation. Now, this one gets a little bit more complex. Same equation, except now we're solving it for v. And v is on the bottom here, so it's going to look a little bit different. So I wanted to show you a couple different ways to look at this and to think about it. So the first thing that I would do is the fraction kind of makes it messy. So if we can multiply by v on each side, just like we did the previous one, it's not a bad first step. And it may not look like it's super helpful, so we have v times d on the left side, and then we have m on the right side. It doesn't look like it's super helpful, but what this actually allows us to do is to solve for v very easily from this step. So we kind of take an in-between step, and then we divide it by, d on each side. So then v is equal to m divided by d, and we've simplified it down. All right. Now, I want to show another way to consider this, and it's based off the idea that 1 over 2 is equal to 3 over 6. Right? We would say that both of these are equivalent to 1/2. This is true. Now, if I took 1 and 2 of that first fraction, I flipped them upside down, we had 2 over 1. In order to maintain that this is true, that this is equivalent, we want to take 3 over 6 and we want to flip it so that the 6 is now on top. This is still true. So we can actually use this idea and this foundational understanding of how fractions work to help us simplify the same question that we looked at earlier for v. So I put d over 1, and now based on this idea from earlier, we can make this 1 over d. But in order to maintain equivalence, maintain that these two are equal, we need v over m. Our final step here is to solve for v, is to multiply each side by m, or on the right side, m over 1. I'd actually do the left side the same way, m over 1. And so I get m over d on the left side, and I get v on the right side. So this is based on understanding of math and solving for the variable. So either one works, but what we want to make sure that we do is that we do things that are mathematically sound. We don't want to just switch things around not knowing how or why we're doing that. And so the main thing that I cannot stress enough is we need to do operations that we know are mathematically sound. Thanks for joining me. Tune in next time.